Okay, today we're going to do a little bit of a trap modification video. Traps I recently got is these, the Duke 550s that I plan to run for my canines next season. As I said in my other videos, I really like these traps. They're nice and sturdy, double plated, nice big pan. It's got the stainless steel dog on it. It's got the cast iron jaw on it. It's an offset jaw, as you can see. For its size, it sets pretty easy. It uses the pit pan. You can see that pan there. It runs through the rail that actually where your springs mount onto. So there's no screw adjuster on it. So it's nice and free. And then it has the sloped and the night latched dog. And the dog is round bar stainless steel. You can see it there against the wall. So it's super strong. It's D-ringed in the bottom. You can see the base plate is bolted on it. And then it's D-ringed. So we have one swivel here. And then further down we have another swivel. Pretty heavy swivel too. I usually change these swivels out on a lot of my traps because I use super stakes to anchor them. And then when I go to pull the stake out of the ground, it has a lot of times it will pull those swivels straight. So like a regular Duke swivel is like that. So it's just a little drowning lock swivel on it. This is a crush proof swivel, so it's much thicker metal. It's heavier and it doesn't bend so easy. And it's not so much the animal bending it, it's bending it when I use the stake puller to pull it out of the ground. That can be pretty rough on it. But what we're going to do today with the trap is we're going to install another swivel on the bottom here. And then I'm running a length of chain, if you can see it, down to my super stake at the end. Now pretty much what I did was I picked the length of the stake out that I know I want that much chain under the ground. So there's no animal that lives around here that's going to be able to pull that out. That once they go in, they're pretty tough to come out. Even with the tool, they're tough to come out. But I got a good strong chain at the hardware store, and then I'll be able to dip these and wax them all together once I have them all assembled. So what I did was, this is going to be our finished product. Now you can make a choice here if you really want to make them super strong. On the eyelets on the swivels, you see this one is open. You can actually weld those eyelets closed, so they absolutely will not come apart. The only thing is then if you need to change a swivel or you need to change a trap off of it, or you break the chain or whatever the instance may be that you have to renew it, then you just got to cut it. You can't open it and reuse it. You have to cut it off and then put another one in it. But if you weld these together, that makes this thing like super strong. That's what I did with the chain on the end. You can see that little raised spot. So what I did was I cut the chain link. The chain is compression welded together. So here's one that's not cut. The chain link is compression welded together. So what I did was I cut it right at the weld. And then I could bend the eyelet open and open the link and then get my super stake onto the link. Just like this one. You can see I haven't welded it yet. So all I did was use a regular bolt cutter. Like this. Bolt cutter, snip the chain open, and then what we're going to do is we're going to weld that link back together, and then we're going to install the swivel, the J-hook. We're going to put one of the J-hooks through the existing swivel. Those swivels are pretty strong, so I don't need to update it or modify it, but that's what we're going to do. And that trap, like I said, that will hold any animal that lives around this area. That's a pretty severe piece of chain, and we should get many years use out of it. Alright, let's get to it. Okay, first off we're going to cut our chain link. We're going to use our bolt cutter. Like I said, we're going to cut it right at the weld there. As close to the weld as I can without lopping the tip of my finger off. I'm going to cut all the way through the chain. So that's pretty much open. So what we're going to do is going to use my J-hook tool Gonna clamp that in there nice and tight. And then what we're going to do is bend it open. Try to just bend one side of it. It's not going to be easy. This is 800-pound chain, so it doesn't bend so easy. I just want to bend the gap wide enough just to get the vessel through it. So now I've bent the chain joint open a little bit. Here's one of my super stakes. I had these originally mounted on cables. I actually bought them mounted on cables. Now we're going to link the super stake in. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bend our jaw back here. Again, we'll use the J-hole tool. You can put a lot of leverage on it with this. That's why you don't want to deform it too much. I'm going to pretty much bend it back to where it was. Like so. Pretty neat. Nice and tidy. Then we have a V notch on each side. You can see where the cutter cut it. So that's going to give me a good V. It's going to give me a good grip when I weld it. I'm just going to spot weld it down on either side. Chain back out of the way. Okay, now we're going to set up our welder here. We're going to spot weld it. Okay, now I have 4 of them here set up that we're going to weld. My glove on, got my helmet. Just using a regular flux core welder here. You can see I have the ground attachment right on it. So now we're going to spot it in there. Make sure you get good penetration across it. Here from both sides. Just like that. You just have to watch your weld pool. It's tricky. And there's your finished spot weld across your chain. Just nice, just where we want it. That's also the reason why I did that. Where I broke the weld at the original spot. It's not giving me a second weak point in the chain. That spot is going to be the weakest point in that chain. But now the weld is going to be one of the strongest spots in that chain. So you won't have any issues with it when it pulls out of the ground. Like I said, it's not a fact that the animal would pull it out of the ground. It's just the fact of me pulling it out of the ground with the stake puller. It's got to be pretty steady. Get one more here. Tricky to clamp a ground clamp to a chain. It's pretty tricky, but it can be done. It can be done. Get our link out of the way there. Do one more quick spot here. Good burn into it. I'll flip it over, then I'll do the other side, but I don't need to blind you with any more of that light. You get the general gist of what we're doing here. It's going to be hot, so you can see there where I melted it. And then what I'll do is I'll put one on the other side, fill the gap on the other side, and we'll be good to go. Okay, now that they're going to brush them off, you can see that I welded that little gap closed. Should be plenty strong, no problems, ready to go on the trap. Now, if you don't have a welder, you can always use a swivel, regular swivel. You can put the swivel through, and then have your other swivel on the other side. Then you can actually attach one swivel to the chain, and you can attach the other swivel to your anchor. You put it through the hole here, and then just crimp it down and crimp this down. It will be just as strong. The swivel is not going to matter because it's going to be under the ground. It won't be affecting how the trap swivels, but you can link it together without a welder. But you want to make sure it's pretty strong, Like I said, these anchors can be pretty tough to get out of the ground. You want to make sure you use a good strong swivel. You can see the difference here. This is a regular Duke swivel off of number 1, so it's off a really small trap. And this is a this one here is an MB crunch proof. So you can see the difference in thickness on it. This metal is twice as thick as this one. Much stronger. And that is going to make a difference. But now that we have those welded together, now we're going to mount them up to our trap here. I'll show you how to do that. Alright, got our chain. You can alter the length of chain depending on what type of dirt you're trapping in. Usually where I trap, it's pretty hard packed clay, and you don't have to drive that stake down too far before it'll really hold. Even with these stakes, you always want to check and make sure that it sets, because you don't know what you're driving into under the ground. You could drive it into a piece of a rotten tree stump, and it basically is a hollow under the ground, and then you could pull on it and it'll pull right out of the ground. So you always want to make sure, don't trust it that's like, oh, this is never going to come out. When you stake it down, always set it and then make sure that it's pretty solid. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get our MB swivel, get a good heavy duty J hook, put that through here. These traps already came with double swivels. The more swivels you have on your trap, the better. So you can see this trap will swivel from side to side. It'll also swivel completely around the bottom, and it will swivel here too. Because what will happen is sometimes the fox or coyote will make a circle. Of course, they're going to make the catch circle, trying to get out of the trap. They might do that for a little while and then realize I'm stuck, and then they just usually lay down. But the swivel can get packed up with mud or grass and dirt, and so sometimes it will become inoperative. If the trap stops swiveling and stops moving, it's much easier for them to pull their foot out of that trap. And it is possible, even on a big trap like this, they can fight it enough to get out of it eventually. If they can get leverage on it and they can get that trap to stay still and pry their foot out, they can do that. So this is, we want as many swivels as possible. It's going to give us a double swivel. So what we're going to do is feed our J-hook through. We're going to feed our J-hook into the chain. And then we're going to use our J-hook S-hook tool. You can see that. It's got big like clamp teeth on it. If I open it there, you'll be able to see it. That's it. Don't want to get your fingers caught in there. Open that wide enough. It's just a perfect fit for that hook. A perfect fit. You can see there how the tool sits right around it. I mean, it's perfect. And then all you have to do is push till it's tight. Use the bench here, wedge it down tight. You always want to make sure it's touching. It's not quite touching. I'm going to go a little further. Alright, there we go. So now we have an inline swivel. So now we have a swivel at the trap as well. Swivels here. Swivels here. Now we have another inline swivel there down to our super stake, and we got plenty of chain in between. Even with the chain, I don't like leaving a lot of chain. I leave enough that the animal can move around. You don't want to ever have it where he's stuck in his trap and then it's like right there in the ground and he has no movement on it. He'll pull his foot out of it. So you always got to give him a little bit of leeway, a little bit of movement that they can move around. Keeps them more comfortable and less apt to escape. But this is pretty much bomb proof. Like I said, if you welded these swivels together, they would never ever come apart, and it will hold anything. That will hold anything. Like I said, it's also real handy. You just dip the whole thing, dye it, and you dip the whole thing in the wax, and you're good to go. You're not carrying separate stakes. I'll use, probably with my cables, I'll use Berkshire disposable drivers. The thing with a cable restraint is too, the animal's pulling on all 4 feet, so you want to make sure it's well anchored. So I will probably get some of these for lighter ground. I will get some of these and use those. And then for regular ground, I'll probably use Berkshire. I'll just make sure it's down really deep. It's a good anchor. But these super stakes are freaking great. from where I trap too, there's a lot of rock, and that you can see it's a solid cone on it. And that even if it hits a rock, it just deflects right off. It just keeps on going. So for that purpose, they're really good for me. But they're really great. They're well, reusable. Like I said, I have mounted them to the chain. You can mount it to cable as well, 30-second cable. You can get crimps like this and make up your own cables. If you want to use a cable anchor, I like the chain. I just at the end of the season pull it out and clean it off, and we're good to go again. So I hope you found that information useful. Help you do some modifications to your traps. I'm going to get the rest of these together then, and then we'll be ready to dye them and wax them. I put all my Hags bracket equipment on my water traps yesterday, so those are all ready to go. Some of the conibears I don't usually dye. Usually with those I paint them, but the foothold traps I usually dye them and then I'll wax them as well. So I hope you found the information useful. Back in a little while to do some more trap modification maybe. Alright, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.